It's Thursday, the 5th of December 2024. Good morning and welcome. It's 8 a.m. in the Gambia and live on West Coast Radio, it's Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. And Coffee Time is brought to you in association with partners led by Wave, TAF Africa Global, Easy Financial Services, Bloombank Africa, Global Properties, the Gambia Experience, and the USA PEEC and GAM Food Trading.
Did you know service plots are now available at Baki? Welcome to Baki, Taft City's fourth residential estate.
Yes, service plots available at Baki with 3 years interest-free payment plan with a minimum deposit of only $94,000, and it will come with fence plot, water reticulation, electricity, solar street lights, and bituminized internal roads. Are you ready to build your dream home for yourself?
Call us now.
We begin our newspaper review with Foraya. Pensioner urges President Barrow to increase underpaid pensioners' pay. Senegal increases media subvention to 4 billion CFA francs. Justice Minister says government committed to prosecuting past crimes. IMF shows Gambia's economic resilience in sub-Saharan Africa. Financial manager testifies on KMC's double payment to businesswomen, and residents of West Coast region demand feeder roads. Next, we have the Voices front page. My 8-year development surpasses my predecessors, President Barrow claims. Senegal increases media subvention to 4 billion CFA francs. Kalaji Kanyeleng women speak out against gender-based violence at WCR caravan event. Martin condemns President's Mandinka voters' remark at LRR. Alleged PIU shooter denies ownership of pair of shoes seized by investigators. Hariba to launch empowering anthology, Whispers from a Wounded Land to inspire change. And man sent to mile 2 on allegation of severely beating his stepmother. Here's the front page of The Point. Minister quizzed to explain change from NIA to SIS without National Assembly approval. Groundnut trade season begins in earnest. Court discovers combat shoes said to have been put on by alleged PIU shooter fit him not. Senegal increases media subvention to 4 billion CFA francs, and GRA Commissioner of Customs addresses IT officers on ISO gap analysis. And finally, the Standard. Comium and Monty Mobile and others appeal against appointment of receiver. Police to take action against officer who discharged tear gas at UTG demo. Senegal Sonko due in Banjul for Economic Forum. UDP to begin national tour on Saturday. Minister says allocation of land to Barrow in Fajara is legal and justified. And combat shoes, prosecutors say alleged PIU killer war did not fit him. And that's today's newspaper review. Our thanks to Foraya, The Standard, The Point, and The Voice.
Hello. If I own a business account with Trust Bank, how can I pay salaries to my employees to other banks?
Kindly send us an instruction through your corporate officer, that's your relationship manager. Send the instruction through a hard copy and we will kindly process for you. It is easy, it is simple. We will need few information from you. Each customer's name, the BBAN, and the bank it needs to be sent to. The BBAN should be complete and it should be in 18 digits. Please kindly forward this and then it will be processed the same day and all the funds will be credited in other banks as well. Thank you.
Welcome back. And if you'd like to advertise on the program, get in touch with Mr. Jibril Jassi on 699-0107, 787-0107, or 924-24-24. And welcome to our guest, Madi Jobarteh, founder of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. Good to have you in the studio, Madi.
Good to be here once again.
Lots to talk about.
Indeed, yeah.
But 30 minutes may be too small
well,
at times. So we'll focus on the two most important documents in the life of any country, as I saw the Deputy Secretary General of the Gambia Teachers Union reminded me here on Monday, and these two documents are naturally the Constitution and the budget, both of which are under consideration in the National Assembly as we speak. But first of all, I mean, you're frustrated with the application of the Access to Information Act. Talk us through your frustration.
Yeah, the frustration is that public institutions are not willing to abide by the law. So we submitted requests for information to 6 institutions, from the Office of the President to some ministries to some agencies, to request for information that we think is public information. I mean, there's nothing confidential or, touching national security or privacy issues, but which Gambians have a right to know. But unfortunately, of all the 6 institutions, only the Gambia Tourism Board and Gambia Ports Authority responded, but only to say, in the case of Gambia Ports Authority, that the contract they signed with Al Bareik Turkey company, there's a condition precedent clause that they cannot disclose or share the contract, signed contract, until January 2025, which you'll display on their website. For GT Board, they said they would have to review their policies and so on, and the data requested, which is basically their revenue collected between January 2017 and December 2023, and also in terms of sources of those revenues. So they said they will have to review that to see whether their policies allow for such information to be given. So is it that they have not read the Access to Information Act, or they're not just willing to submit to the law, to follow the rule of law?
No, it's their policy that, seemingly bars them from sharing certain information, even if it is in the public interest. Yeah,
so the Access to Information Act, which was passed in 2021, provides that it has overriding power, sort of, over all other legislation. So you, particularly, legislation. So you are not even talking about your internal policies and regulations. So, so that's not an excuse. But also the Act requires that public institutions create the infrastructure for access to information, so that they would have to identify an information officer. They would have to determine the processes, the structures for providing information as far as according to the Access to Information Act. So by now, that kind of response is not what is expected, because you should have had that kind of structure process already in place, so that when information comes, you either provide the information or you say, no, we cannot provide this information because according to the Act, this information is classified as this or that.
So clearly, the Commission has a problem here.
Yeah,
it needs to create awareness about, its authority.
Yeah, so the Information Commission has a lot of work to do, because one, they have to make sure each and every public institution has developed that kind of structural process, put that mechanism in place. And
also to understand that whatever legislation until now barred them from sharing whatever information, however they, choose to brand the information, that doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist. So you cannot say such a law bars me, because even the Officer Secrets Act, as far as the ATI Act is concerned, it's specific there that, it overrides, has supremacy over all other laws. So you cannot rely on any law to say this law bars me. So the only way you can refuse to give information is referring to the exemptions provided in the Access to Information Act.
Okay.
And that those exemptions are specified what kind of information that would have to be. Okay. Yeah.
So what kind of information were you requesting from the Office of the President, for instance?
We are requesting for the vehicles, the 57 vehicles that were given to, that the President gave to NAMS in 2017.
Yeah. This was during his first term?
During his first term.
What they call the coalition term.
Yeah, so that was what we were looking for in terms from the Office of the President. I think I'm trying to recall what else we had.
And why is that information important? The President has come out clearly to say that these were vehicles donated to him by an unnamed person.
Yeah. So when you look at the Constitution, Section 222 talks about gifts, for example, Code of Conduct for Public Officers. So that it talks about gifts, that you cannot receive gifts. So if somebody gave a gift like that to the President, he is bound to declare it, like who is the source of this gift. And this is obvious because what the Constitution intends and what the norms of good governance are is that there should be transparency and accountability to prevent corruption and abuse of office. And in terms of the President, it deals with the very idea of national security, because what is the source that could give the 57 vehicles to the President? What are their interests? How could they use that gift to compromise national security, to compromise the President, to control the President through those gifts? So when you look at it, this is at the heart of national security, good governance, transparency and accountability. So for me, it's critical that we know what is the source, or who is the source of these vehicles, and particularly given that these vehicles went further to be given to parliamentarians who preside over,
who make our laws,
preside over the executive, and so on. So would this entity, by giving such gift to the President, therefore gain contracts, for example, on fairly, illegitimately, illegally from the government? And this is critical for us to highlight, for us to say, because we remember the Chinese company that gave $750,000 put in the First Lady's account, early on, which, the President said because they didn't know where to put it, and so on. But that same company was the one we saw giving a contract on the telecoms contract in the country.
Was it telecoms or NAWEC?
Yeah, I think it's telecoms, some fiber optic installations, and so on. Yeah, but either way, that cannot be just coincidental. And one would raise the issue whether due process was followed, whether that was a contract, or the company awarded is a legitimate, competent, qualified to get that award, or whether anyone was disadvantaged as a result of that, and so on, and which deals with Peter, also our economy. Yes, because it could lead to costing the country resources, and which is a big crime also as far as the Constitution is concerned, in terms of the the Office of the President, Office of Ministers, and so on, to do actions or to take decisions that would lead to economic loss to the country.
Okay.
So looking at everything, I think this was a pertinent issue for us to pursue.
Just to try to maybe, identify the role of the ATI Commission in all this. When you applied for the information, did you apply through the Commission?
No, I applied it directly to the institution.
Didn't you have to? What's the protocol?
Well, the Commission can develop a protocol. For example, request forms.
Have they done that yet?
They've not done that. So they have an option to do that or not. As far as the Act is concerned, is that a citizen can request to public bodies for information.
But I'm supposing through you have to pass through the commission.
No. The
You don't have to.
Yeah, the act says you submit a request to information officer of the public body.
Oh, okay.
If the commission wishes to bring any other kind of protocol or regulation or process, fine. If the institutions want to do that, fine. But they have to let people know and make.
So what's the role of the commission then? I mean, if I can directly write to, I'm a Bojang in State House and say, well, I want this information as the Director of Press and Public Relations. I mean, even if I don't expect her to acknowledge even receipt of my letter, and the commission, cannot play any role, then why have the commission? When does the commission come into the picture?
Yeah, because the commission provides the monitoring of the implementation by the public bodies. So that when we wrote to those institutions, we copied the commission to make them aware.
Okay.
So that they because they provide oversight, they're the custodian of the law to make sure it is being implemented by the public bodies. And now that they have refused to respond, we've also informed the commission that this is happening. So our expectation...
Expecting them to do what exactly?
Yeah, our expectation is the commission to hold these institutions accountable, to tell them, look, you have to abide by the law. And the commission even has a power to take those institutions to court for failing to abide by the law.
You think they will?
Well, they should. And
the question is, do you think they will?
Whether they would, I mean, yes, I want to trust that the members of the commission, would take such action as far as they've expressed, their commitment to me. I have no doubt that they would do it. Okay. So if they don't do it, I mean, of course, Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice reserve the right to take those institutions to court, but also the commission itself for failing to make sure the act is implemented.
So if you have to, you will take the commission to court?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. All right, let's move on. These two documents, I mean, they've got us all talking for weeks now.
Yeah.
Starting with the 2025 proposed budget.
Yeah, so I have
which looks
classified,
which looks very likely to pass.
Oh, yeah.
With cosmetic changes.
Yeah,
because if all the National Assembly can boast of is a slice of just over $400 million out of a $53 billion budget. I mean, they could just have spared themselves the trouble and just let it pass as is.
So Peter, I've classified this budget, like many budgets before, that it's a budget for corruption and a budget for poverty. That is to increase the poverty, the deprivation, the hardship on Gambians, but at the same time to provide benefits and pampering and mismanagement of resources by public institutions.
Okay, that last bit I understand. They will travel if they fall sick with their families. They will be airlifted out of this country. Yeah. That is clear in that document. So anybody who reads it sees it. But how will it further impoverish us, make us even poorer?
Yeah. So because the budget is founded on high taxes and loans. Okay, and of course grants, even though they are complaining about grants. But given the, the mismanagement system in place, it means even where they said the budget will provide, say, roads or build schools or hospitals, the effect is that at the end of the day, the product or service that is going to be given to the people is either low quality, that at the end of the day, does not go to enhance the social economic well-being of the people of the long term. And the evidence of this is look at the 22 years of all the infrastructure projects Jammeh brought to this country. At the end of the day, it has further impoverished Gambians. And so where you have, that aside, where you have taxes being increased, that means we are going to see higher cost of living in this country. And
you talk about increase in taxes. Have you gone through the draft, the proposal as it is, to ascertain that certain taxes have been raised? Because the argument always has been, we are not raising taxes. The minister was with me on the program. We are not raising taxes, is what I understood from him. We are only broadening the tax base so that, for instance, if the Jaikati Gert Reserve was not being taxed, suddenly, even if it's only 1 butut per CO. They start paying 1 butut per CO, just broadening, the tax base, getting more from the people.
Yeah, so that broadening of tax base, the tax base itself, is an act of increasing cost of living, because that get-a-serve seller, who is struggling to make ends meet, who is not getting the necessary inputs to, even sell his get-a-serve or her get-a-serve, is going to end up also adding a butut or 2 bututs on the cup of get-a-serve that he's selling.
True.
So that I realize, for example, I buy get-a-serve at LK school.
It's the most popular. Absolutely.
I mean, today, the water bottle, the small water bottle, is like $250. All right, the big one, the 3-liter bottle, I mean, is over three.
Everything has gone up.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
And one can claim this is get-a-serve seller. Why is she putting up?
Yeah.
Because that get-a-serve seller also has to buy cash power and so on. So if you put further burden on that get-a-serve seller to pay from her get-a-serve, well, she has to meet those other needs at home and all the other bills. So essentially, what is happening is, in fact, it is mere talk about we are expanding the base. If you look at the World Bank Doing Business report, they produce an annual report. You will realize that they categorize countries in terms of total tax rate. The number of taxes and the amount of taxes people pay in a particular country. If you look at that report over the years until 2023, you realize that Gambia is among the top countries with the highest total tax rate. All right. The minister's own budget, I mean, when he presented it, talks about increasing domestic revenue. Now, when you increase domestic revenue, it's not only expanding the number of taxpayers, it's also about increasing the amounts of taxes to be paid. All right. So, but this is the kind of language the minister talks and public officials, and when he was here and following the conversation in the National Assembly, so I wonder sometimes. I mean, what does the minister know? Is the minister an economist? Is the minister?
Why do you say that?
Yeah, because you look at this budget, like budgets before. I saw him lamenting about, for example, Gambia getting to debt distress, and lamenting the fact that budget support is going down. And then, you look at your budget, what are you doing to increase the productive base? What are you doing to support SMEs, even large businesses, to grow so that they can generate a lot more employment and a lot more revenue? What are you doing to create a lot more inputs to facilitate trade and commerce in this country, whether it's electricity, water, and so on? So that when you look at...
I don't hear you say, what are you doing to slash public expenditure? 50 million for the president to go on one trip from Banjul to Basse, for instance.
Yeah.
More money for the office of the president.
Yeah, so I mean, those are on the other side in terms of the expenditure.
Yeah.
But I mean, we also look at how are you managing this economy to really see how do we tap into the resources, the potentials that exist in this country, so that at the end of the day, this budget is not going to make the River Gambia become productive economically. The River Gambia can be used for transportation, for sports, for tourism, for irrigation, for food, and so on. But it is lying there, fallow since 1965. It's not generating the wealth that it is creating. So that at the end of the day, what this budget, like other budgets are doing, they are not generating wealth. We see them because the easiest thing for any government to do is to build a road or build a building. Build a bridge.
If only the roads last. I mean, I look at the Westfield to Sukuta road.
Well, every road. I mean, even this battle-hardened road right now. When you look at it, you see its cost on businesses. That this is not a road that is going to generate growth. Wealth, because it is already a liability.
How?
because
liability.
accessibility, yes, because it has created inconveniences in terms of accessibility, for example, of individual customers to businesses. So you have all these railings on the highway. You have the highway parts that are so high. So that I take an example of myself. When I go home, I would drop by Hayward Supermarket or Alvea Supermarket or Right Choice towards the end. Since this road was done, I don't pass there because
there are no exits.
There's no exits. It has become a cost for me to branch off to go there. And I'm sure if you talk to those supermarkets and shops along this road from, traffic light all the way down to turntable and all the way to there, they'll tell you
that's a good story idea. Just to ask businesses along that route how it has impacted
and the evidence
them.
Again, because I like to talk about evidence. Peter, I buy fruits from a lady who sits by
SN Brussels, where the Deloitte and Touche used to be.
No.
Not that one.
No. La Parisienne, the supermarket, the restaurant, by, La Parisienne by turntable.
Okay.
That area after Alvi Hajj to going towards. So there are food sellers that sit there, a lady, and then all of a sudden I couldn't see her. Then, because she's such a good client, every evening when I go groundnuts and banana and stuff, I'll pick it from her. She called me and said, now I'm sitting at Sukura traffic light towards Jabang. If you bend towards Jabang, now I sit there. And said, I'm client.
Every development has its cost. So I'm sorry. I mean, some people were bound to be inconvenienced. She's just unlucky.
Yeah, but this inconvenience is so widespread and deep.
We've got to move on.
Yeah.
And talk about the Constitution.
Yeah, so you see, Peter...
Because we have only 7 minutes.
7 minutes. I wish we had more time to remind Gambians that this is not the first time we are having a constitution. Our 1965 constitution was not written by Gambians. The British wrote it and imposed it on us. And when you look at that constitution, power was given to the states. People's rights, limited rights were given to the people. Limited obligations were put on the state.
Because they were modeled on the colonizers' law.
Yeah. Now, 1970 Constitution was also not written by Gambians. It was written by the British and approved in our National Assembly, our House of Representatives at the time. But similarly, you realize that limited rights were given to Gambians and more powers were given to the state with limited checks and balances and obligations.
To the new rulers, if you like.
To the new rulers. Now, we went to 1994. 1996 became a moment when an attempt was made for the first time for Gambians to write their own constitution. A CRC was established at the time by the soldiers. They went round and they put up a draft, a very good draft.
One of our former colleagues was a member of that commission, Ami Jufkol.
Yeah. So when they submitted the draft to Jammeh, they put it on the table and look at it and removed elements there and put elements there, so that at the end of the day, it was just to give, once again, the new rulers huge powers.
In fact, the original draft barred Yahya Jammeh from running in the immediate
1997 election,
yes,
96
absolutely.
election, and of course with term limits and so on.
Yes.
They remove all of that. All right. So they didn't just stop there, but from 97 until today, they've amended that constitution uncountable times. Now, again, we never wrote our own constitution until we got to 2017. They set up the CRC again, and they went around not only within Gambia, but outside of the Gambia, and wrote a very good draft. Again, they gave it to the president. But with his people, they killed it in the National Assembly in September 2020. Now, like Jammeh did, they also took the 2020, put it on the table, and butcher it as convenient as possible to give themselves huge powers, limit checks and balances, reduce obligations, and, restrict rights of citizens.
Well, they argue that of course, you've heard the argument, passing this in the National Assembly, the 2024 draft, is the lesser of two evils. And, they argue that at least it guarantees two fundamental things: term limit and 50+1.
Those are non-negotiable requirements.
Well, they're not in the 1997 Constitution.
Yeah. But the thing is, Peter, I don't accept and I refuse to be boxed between the 1997 Constitution and 2024
It's not a choice between 1997 and 2024.
Yes, I mean, I refuse that. 2024, in fact, I call the Barrett Papers. I don't honor it with the name Constitution, even if it's draft Constitution. Look, this country, it is high time the citizens realize, after 60 years, we are yet to have the kind of republic that we, I mean, look at the poverty in this country. Look at the mismanagement of public resources. Look at the poor services, expensive, erratic services in this country.
They could argue that is what the 2024 draft constitution is here to address.
But the evidence in that draft would expose, the falsity of those claims that they would make. Because the 2024 draft is a constitution that essentially would constitutionalize dictatorship and corruption in this country.
Dictatorship, how?
Yeah, because of the
corruption, you could argue, by the mere fact that they removed the integrity chapter that was in the 2020.
Not just the integrity chapter, but, there are disclosure provisions around the president, ministers, and so on that they removed. And, in terms of dictatorship, Peter, if you remove checks and balances, you remove parliamentary approval, confirmation of appointments, for institutions, and especially institutions that are supposed to be independent to monitor, to enforce, to, ensure that, human rights are protected, that corruption is exposed and combated, and so on, then effectively, if you hand over all those powers for one man to decide, then you are legalizing dictatorship, because that's essentially what is dictatorship.
Is that what this proposed document seeks to?
Exactly. So they have said, for example, the president would appoint all heads of independent or members of independent commissions. All right. I mean, which is unthinkable in any modern democracy. But also the president would, not have any parliamentary confirmation for appointment of ministers and other institutions as well. So that essentially, and this part is very significant, Peter, because of parliamentary confirmation.
Yes.
In the U.S., we have seen America being saved from having a predator, sex predator, becoming an attorney general. The man,
Mr. Gates.
The man Trump identified. I mean, even his own party, like, if this man comes, we are not going to confirm him. So that is the beauty of parliamentary confirmation, that it doesn't take power from the president.
But this is a parliament that has not turned down yet anything, thrown at it by the executive.
Yeah, because, Peter, since 1965, we are under a political legal dispensation that only generates patronage and, such, failure to perform one's functions. Because the National Assembly members, they know they face no consequences. And so instead of doing their oversight and disciplining the executive, they let it pass because no consequences. You go to the 1997 Constitution, there's a section 92. It's about recall of members. When that constitution was done in 1997, it says the National Assembly, by an act of parliament, would develop the mechanism for recall of members. Since 1997, parliamentarians, National Assembly members, individually and collectively failed to create an act of parliament for the recall of members. That alone indicates that we don't have a good constitution. Because
we don't have a good constitution, or we don't have good lawmakers with morals.
Or both. But you see, it's either way. If you have a very good constitution, it also generates the interest, the commitment, the participation of citizens to make certain things happen. But also, you limit the way and manner politicians as lawmakers or even in the executive could manipulate or fail to do what they're supposed to do. So the first premise is have a very good constitution to start from. Now, when you lack that, of course, you are going to produce all these kind of politicians and all these things we say about politicians. And that is what we are facing.
We've run out of time. The UDP has previously made it clear that even if a single comma is removed from the 2020 draft, their National Assembly members will not vote for, any constitution proposal. We are faced with a situation where not just a comma, but whole chapters have disappeared from what is being proposed. Now, you have another school of thought that says, however bad this one may be, it's a starting point. Let's approve it, and in due time, improve all the defective clauses and move forward. Finally, by way of concluding this conversation, you can never reach a conclusion with Madi. How would what's your advice?
My advice is this process to be aborted. All right. We go back to our CRC Act 2017, review it so that we insert new structures and processes that would save our draft constitution from party capture, from executive capture, from legislative capture. All right. What we need to do, and which is a common practice around the world, we create a constituent assembly to which we will give the 2020 draft, assisted by a technical committee of experts, let's say the CRC commissioners we had, over a period of time. A constituent assembly comprising a broad section of Gambians. They sit over it, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, so that at the end of the day, they come out on consensus on a approved draft, which we would now submit to a referendum.
Okay.
All right. But we cannot make our executive and our legislature to decide on our constitution when there are political parties and politicians seeking to secure their interests and power and things like that.
Madi,
yeah.
we've got to end it there. Thank you very much for your time. That's Madi Jobarteh, head of the Edward Francis Small Center for Justice and Rights. Now I can name it without referring to any document.
But rights and justice.
Rights and justice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rights come before justice. All right. Tomorrow we'll have a delegation of from the CRS in the studio. Thank you very much for listening to today's Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. Also for watching now that we are on YouTube. I'll see you again here tomorrow.